My name is Kim Cantrell with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers, and I'm the Program Director for the Assistive Technology Network. I'm very excited to be here with you today. We have two additional presenters, Rachel and Rosemarie. Rachel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Anderson and I'm a program coordinator for the AT Network. My role, I have a variety of different roles. I do information and referral as well as some outreach as well as program coordination here. So welcome, thanks.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Rosemarie Punzalan and I'm the training specialist for the Assistive Technology Network. My role is mostly on the training piece as well as providing technical assistance for the AT Exchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's back to me, Kim Cantrell. Let's go ahead and look at what we're going to be talking about today. So our AT Network training today is Find It, Fund It, Technologies and Gadgets to Increase Independence. This AT 101 training is designed to give you a basic overview of ways to find the AT you need and, most importantly, AT funding options in California. So we have a very busy 60 minutes planned for you. First, we will define assistive technology and talk about where you can find it. The internet helps us find AT much more quickly these days, and we'll go over some ways to find the assistive technology you need. Then the rest of the training will be focused on how to fund it, primary funding sources and tips on working with these funding sources. And then we'll talk about crowdsourced funding options. This is a new, exciting, and some would say intimidating funding frontier. So Rachel will be talking about that. Then we'll be talking about other resources that will help you fund assistive technology on your own for yourself or on behalf of other people. And then we'll end with some questions and answers. We do ask that you reserve your questions until the end of the presentation today, simply because 60 minutes is a short amount of time, and we might be able to get to your to answer your question before the end. So make sure to take a mental note or write down your questions as we go. Okay. So next, AT Network resources. As we discuss various ways to find and fund assistive technology, we will often refer to other AT Network resources that you can explore to learn more about a subject in depth. So the most commonly resources that we'll be talking about, archive trainings. This is on YouTube, and we have a lot of our archive trainings on YouTube that you can watch at your convenience. And we also have these same trainings on the Blackboard Collaborate site. And the biggest difference between accessing the trainings between YouTube and Blackboard, on the Blackboard site, you can see the chat box and you can see who the participants are in the room, and in YouTube you cannot. Self-paced trainings. These are trainings where you can download a PowerPoint or you can scroll through the PowerPoint online. So again, we'll be referring to these trainings quite often during the presentation, and this is so you can go and dive in and learn more. Okay, now I'd like to turn it over to Rachel to discuss more about assistive technology.
Okay, hi everyone. Most of you are probably familiar when we say AT or assistive technology, but to start things off, we wanted to just go over that definition. When we're talking about AT or assistive technology, what exactly are we talking about? It is there's such a wide range of devices and gadgets, and we're talking about software, we're talking about durable medical equipment. You know, under this very broad term AT, many different things lie. So the definition we have of AT is any device, gadget, hardware, or software used by a person with a disability to do things for themselves that might otherwise be difficult or impossible to do because of their disability. So when we're talking about AT, it really is this broad of the spectrum. And so just to go over kind of what types of things specifically that could include, I have a few slides of what is AT. And the first picture is of a reacher or grabber picking up a bottle. So for instance, many people could find a reacher or grabber useful. Someone that uses a wheelchair, if you drop a piece of paper and you want to pick it up, their reachers and grabbers have different attachments that you can use. They can also reach things high, and a lot of them are lightweight and portable. So really important to someone's independence to have a reacher or grabber. There, next to the grabber is a vibrating alarm clock. So someone that might be hard of hearing or deaf could use a loud vibrating alarm clock. Right next to the alarm clock is a portable folding ramp. That's obviously used for people that use wheelchairs. If there's a little tiny step right there, and you can see the ramp assists in getting up that step. And a couple more different examples of AT. We're also talking about AT for recreational things. There's a crocheting and embroidering aid. It's a clamp with a wire bendy thing. So if someone wants to do crocheting or embroidering with one hand, that kind of holds it steady for them. There is a door knock sensor. Actually, just yesterday in our information and referral, someone contacted me and said, you know, I have hearing aids, but I can't hear my doorbell when I'm upstairs. And I did some research for them and found, I think, 30 different types of doorbell adaptive equipment that they could use, ranging from $13 all the way to $400. So there are many different door knock sensors, I learned yesterday. And this one shows it's set off by the vibration of the door knock, and it sets off a bright strobe light. So hopefully you wouldn't miss if someone was knocking at your door. And the next device next to that is a talking watch. And that reads aloud the time, the date, with a push of a button, the time, the date, things like that. So talking watch would be good for low vision or blind individuals. And moving on. Couple more examples of AT. Communication iPads. So when you hear technology, we think technology. A lot of times we think computers. And even though AT includes different durable medical equipment and devices and gadgets, it does also include software and computer programs. There are not just the iPad is an example I have on here, a communication app for the iPad. But there are also other communication devices as well. There's also many different vehicle modifications. Here I just put on for an example, a hand control for a vehicle and a spinner knob for the wheel, but there are many different vehicle modifications that can be made for different disabilities as well. And last but not least, there's a large button TV remote control. It has just 6 very large buttons. Now this can be useful. It's an easier to grip and push the buttons than I'm sure you all have seen. The most recent remote controls that I've seen have just hundreds of tiny buttons. So this is a remote that's a lot easier for people to use because of its simplicity and the large buttons. Okay, one more. I got it. Okay, moving along quickly, there's a caption telephone. There's an Etch-a-Sketch that is adapted to be able to be used with switches. And the caption telephone, and the reading pen and dragon program where you speak and it types the words that you're saying. So just some more examples of AT, just so everyone's clear on what AT is. Now, where can I learn more about AT or research new devices? There are literally hundreds of different places online. I put just 3 examples up on the screen: EnableMart, Amazon, Boundless AT, but there are virtually hundreds of places to research more about AT and shop online. You can also talk to different service agencies that focus on your disability and talk to people online or out in your community. You know, there are many different support groups and online listservs where people can talk about different devices, what kind of things maybe have worked for them, and, you know, reading. I always find it helpful to read different reviews and talk to the experts, the people that are you know, working in your community as well. So there's no shortage of learning more about AT, and as you know, it's constantly changing. New things are constantly coming out and being adapted for the better. Another way to keep up to date with AT is to use our AT network services to find out. We have a social media, we have our online service directory where you can put in your zip code and find out different vendors and different service providers in your area. We have our device lending libraries and our AT exchange where people can borrow equipment for free for 30 days from our device lending libraries, as well as post or see if there's any AT for sale on the AT exchange with our reuse. And sometimes things are free and sometimes they're very low cost. Another way to find out more if you have questions about AT is to talk to your local AT advocate. We're going to send you an outline with all of these links to them, and you can find out based on the city that you live in who your closest local AT advocate would be to talk to them, because they're experts usually in AT and AT funding in your area. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Kim to talk a little bit about funding options.
Thank you, Rachel. My section will be talking about insurance, health insurance specifically. And I'll talk about private insurance first. But before talking about private insurance, Medi-Cal and Medicare, I want to let you know that I'm very aware, everyone at the AT Network is, that the Affordable Care Act has been rolling out and that Covered California begins January 1st, 2014. That used to feel so far away, but it's about 6 months away now where people can enroll in health plans, and I recently just called Covered California and was trying to learn what the minimum durable medical equipment coverage would be, and they wouldn't disclose that information at this time. They said they didn't have it. So as soon as we get that information, we will pass it on to you, because there are going to be mandatory minimums on durable medical equipment coverage, and that'll kind of change how how the game is played and some of the information I'm going to share. So private insurance, this is not Medi-Cal, not Medicare, so not government funded, that you get it either through an individual plan or through your employer. And these plans may cover many types of assistive technology, including durable medical equipment, prosthetics and orthotics, glasses, and communication devices. So you may be wondering, what is durable medical equipment? In general, it's devices like wheelchairs, scooters, hospital beds, shower chairs, and the like. And I'll give a definition in a few minutes. So something that can be used time again. So preferred provider organizations, or PPOs, and health management organizations, HMOs, they differ and coverage varies by plan. So that's really important to take into consideration with assistive technology. Does my plan cover AT? Does it not? And how much does it cover? And if you have an appeal, who you appeal to and the appeal process is very, very different. HMOs are overseen by the Department of Managed Healthcare, and if you were to appeal a PPO decision, it would go to the Department of Insurance, and it's a very different appeal process. So coverage for durable medical equipment has decreased over time, in particular since the mid-2000s. And most plans, particularly HMO plans, cover 50 to 80% of equipment. It used to cover that much no matter how expensive the equipment was. And now plans, many plans, have annual coverage limits, maybe $3,000 maximum that the plan will cover, or if you're lucky, $10,000 these days. So if you need a $20,000 wheelchair, then you know that a lot of money is coming out of your pocket if you have an annual cap, like $5,000 to $10,000. So what does that mean? It means if you're choosing a plan or you're wondering what type of coverage your plan might have, you should be reviewing durable medical equipment coverage even if you currently don't use it. And that often extends to prosthetics and orthotics as well. So when you are denied coverage for a medically necessary device, you want to appeal, appeal, appeal. And so if you think that you need, let's say, a manual wheelchair and your insurance company denies it, and private insurance companies often do, and they hope that you won't appeal. If you do appeal, I've seen many, many funding decisions overturned, and it's simply because the burden of proof is on you as the system now stands. If you're curious on how to appeal an HMO or PPO funding decision, we have an archive training on assistive technology appeals in private insurance companies that was led by Hillary Sklar of Disability Rights California, and we invite you to view that training after today. So if you have any questions, go ahead and view it. We will be pushing out this PowerPoint as well as a Word outline that is in accessible format, so you can just click on the links and go straight to the training. All right, so that's private insurance. Medi-Cal, little bit different. So if you have Medi-Cal, coverage includes durable medical equipment, prosthetics and orthotics, most medical supplies, many times, not always, but many times dedicated communication devices, as well as associated services for all of these, so evaluations, assessments, training, and support. So durable medical equipment as defined by Medi-Cal must withstand repeated use. It must serve a medical purpose. Durable medical equipment must not be useful to an individual in the absence of an illness, an injury, or functional impairment, or congenital anomaly, and it needs to be appropriate for use either in or out of the patient's home. So it's a broad definition, and it includes equipment such as canes, crutches, walkers, grab bars, hospital beds, water or gel pressure mattresses, oxygen therapy equipment, basic and custom wheelchairs, augmentative communication devices, and other services and devices. It also specifically includes durable medical equipment needed to assist a parent with a disability, a step-parent, foster parent, or legal guardian to care for a child. So it covers a lot. And what Medi-Cal does not cover are household items, items not used primarily for medical care, and articles of clothing, even if these items meet a legitimate medical need. It's just they might be too broad. So if a household item will serve your medical needs, Medi-Cal will not authorize it as a medical device. So Medi-Cal will not cover things like air conditioners, air filters, food blenders, orthopedic mattresses, or automobile modifications. So that's like if you need modifications for your van, etc. And most often, Medi-Cal limits authorization for durable medical equipment to the lowest cost item that will adequately serve your medical needs. So here on this slide, I have an asterisk after coverage includes, and the asterisk down at the bottom reads, if deemed medically necessary. Okay, so what does it mean to be medically necessary? The state law defines medically necessary as services, medicines, supplies, and devices necessary to protect life, to prevent a significant illness or disability, or to alleviate severe pain. Okay. Medically necessary services include rehabilitation and other services needed to attain or retain the capability for normal activity, independence, or self-care. So with that, Medi-Cal will not pay for treatment, medicines, or devices that it considers experimental. I've worked with a lot of people over the years who've wanted to get either an experimental device or what Medi-Cal considers that it hasn't shown to be effective yet because it's so new. Even if you think it's medically necessary and it falls within the definition of DME, it's still at this point very often will not pay for it. So if you need a device and you have Medi-Cal, most of the time the devices are over $100 if it's durable medical equipment, or over $500 if it's prosthetics, over $250 if it's orthotics. You're going to need to get pre-approval, and so you'll need to include your written prescription, a treatment authorization request that's filled out, and within that written prescription and the treatment authorization request, known as a TAR, you need to make sure that there's proper medical justification. It's a critical part of the treatment authorization request process. We have more information about treatment authorization requests on our AT Network website. There is a link in the PowerPoint presentation and in the other document we'll be sending you so you can learn more. Okay, and it explains everything that you have to include. Okay. So Medi-Cal's been going through a lot of changes and will continue to evolve in the years that come as it expands and allows more people to enter into the system. So currently there's a move toward Medi-Cal managed care for people with disabilities and seniors throughout California. Not every single area, but there's a large move. And this is meant for people that if you have a particular provider that maybe that provider isn't part of one of your group plans that you're moving into, like an HMO. And so coverage may not be quite the same as this evolution is happening. So the verdict is still out, but as disability advocates, we're concerned because it means less choice of providers, both physician and otherwise. So because of this move, the AT Network put together a training on getting durable medical equipment and Medi-Cal managed care. And the training was actually led by Lisa Codmer with LA Care, which is one of the Medi-Cal managed care plans that covers LA County. And so she talks about what they cover, the changes as people move from fee-for-service Medi-Cal to Medi-Cal managed care. So if you're curious about the changes, check out that training. We also have a PowerPoint that was put together by Disability Rights California that talks more about Medi-Cal funding for assistive technology in general. Okay? And within that PowerPoint, it talks about how to appeal Medi-Cal funding decisions. So if Medi-Cal rejects your request for, let's say, a hospital bed or a power chair, you can appeal, and the steps are in the training as well as some tips on how to advocate for yourself. Okay, Medicare. Medicare is a little more slippery. We'll go through it very quickly. Medicare Part B is the part that covers durable medical equipment and other devices. People who qualify for Medicare, it's age-based. If you're 65 and over, you qualify for Medicare, as well as disability-based eligibility. People who are considered Medi-Medi, that's Medi-Cal eligible and Medicare eligible, slightly different provisions than just straight Medicare. It covers a little bit more because Medi-Cal gets into the mix, which is California's state Medicaid program. So Medicare also looks at medical necessities, whether or not they're going to cover a device. And Medicare covers things like durable medical equipment, prosthesis and orthotics, other equipment. It covers less equipment than Medi-Cal. Okay, so Medi-Cal will purchase things like shower chairs, purchase things like maybe a raised toilet seat. Medicare typically does not purchase items like that. They will purchase a bedside commode, but they stay out of the shower and toileting, things like that. So again, much more restrictive definition for what they cover. So if you're curious, you'd like to learn more about what Medicare covers, you can watch one of our AT Network YouTube videos, or you can view a PowerPoint that goes over Medicare coverages. All right. Another thing to think about with both Medi-Cal and Medicare is they consider most durable medical equipment, because it is supposed to withstand repeated use, that it has a 5-year lifespan, or 60 months. So if you get something like a wheelchair, they won't often authorize a replacement or another similar item for 60 months or 5 years. So for people who need a similar item during that 5-year span, you'll have to look for other sources. Okay, thank you very much. I'm turning it over to Rosemarie to talk about some other funding sources.
Thank you, Kim. All right, my section, I will be covering several agencies that you can go to fund assistive technology. And the first agency is the Department of Rehabilitation. And their goal is to support the employment of people with disabilities. And the services that they offer are career assessment and counseling, job search and interview skills, independent living skills, career education and training, and assistive technology. And with those services that they offer, there are programs, some of the programs that they offer, depending on what your employment goal is. And some of the programs that I'll mention that you can participate are like blind field services, client assistance program, the deaf and hard of hearing services, independent living, disability access services, etc. Okay, and once you have an employment goal, you can apply for the Department of Rehab Services. There are several application steps that you need to go through. And the first step is that you want to contact your local Department of Rehab office and schedule an appointment. The purpose of making that appointment is so that you can meet with a vocational rehab to begin with the assessment process. There are paperwork that are involved and has a listing of questionnaire, and you want to make sure that you provide the DOR enough information about your goal and the goals of the tools that you need for your employment. There's also an orientation that you can go. This will give you the orientation video, or in person will give you an idea to what the process is like and what you can do. the application process, actually the entire process can be very time consuming. So you really want to be patient. The process takes time, and you want to make sure that you're on top of things with your application. If you have any specific questions, you want to bring that up to your vocational rehab for the assessment process. There are some DOR tips to keep in mind when you're going through the process, and as I mentioned earlier, is that you want to stay in contact with your vocational rehab. For example, if you have any, changes within the last 15, 20, 30 days, you want to inform your vocational rehab. And every counselor is different, and you may have to switch for a reason that your first counselor was not a good fit. Okay, the next agency is the regional center. And the regional center, there are 21 regional centers throughout the state of California, and what they do is they serve people with developmental disabilities. And the eligibility requirement is that the person must have a disability, I think it's before the age of 18, which is at 16, and the eligibility is established. It is based through the diagnosis and the assessment performed by the regional center. And there is a link on the slide, which is also included in the RTF readable format, the link that will take you directly to the Developmental Disabilities Services website for the general information about the eligibility requirements. We also have the archived webinar training on assistive technology in regional centers, which was presented by the Parents Helping Parents, and that archived webinar talks about what kind of assistive technology will the regional center fund, what is the process of getting the AT through the regional center, and once we get towards the end, we can find out what covers. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, how to get AT funded by the regional centers. Okay, as I mentioned, you must have a disability, so you must be a client of the regional center. The eligibility is based on the assessment from the developmental disability. The regional center is mandated to fund AT as required by Lanterman Act. And a little bit about the Lanterman Act is that it was passed in 1969, and it's the California law that says, people with developmental disabilities and their families have a right to get the services and support that they need. And so when you or a consumer is going through the process through the regional center, there are two different plans. One is the individual program plan, or IPP, and there's also an individual family service plan, or IFSP. And you want to make sure that your assistive technology, whether it's a tool or a software, is written into the plan. That's very important to keep that in mind. And of course, other funders may be identified with IPP. Okay, schools. the schools under the IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Act, and that is it's a federal legislation to ensure that students with disabilities be granted with free appropriate public education, and all students have the right to request an IEP, or individualized education program. And basically what that IEP is that it describes the goals set for the student, in order to achieve in an academic, in a classroom. And like as I mentioned in the previous slide about the regional centers, you also want to make sure that the IEP states the assistive technology tool. You want to be as specific as possible to make sure that the student has access in a classroom to achieve for their academic purposes. And I also included the IDEA link, which is also included in the RTF outline presentation. Okay, next slide for schools. Schools are typically the primary funder for there are several assistive technology examples. One is reading pens, iPads, specifically for like iPad apps that are more like geared for special ed apps. And then there's a slant boards. There's also learning and organization software and note-taking devices. These are just several examples that schools are typically the primary funder for. And like I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that the tool, either an app or a device or software, must be written into the IEP. And I believe if it's not written IEP, I think there's a certain time frame that you can resubmit your IEP. I believe it's within 30 days, but you have 3 months to set up another appointment for that. We have an AT network training on AT in education that's also in our archived website. And then recently we have recently we've completed an AT network IEP tip sheet, and it should be coming out very soon and will be available in electronic format as well as for distribution. That way, when you're doing your outreach, these are some of the tip sheets that you can provide. Okay, veterans. Let's see. Veterans may be entitled to assistive technology as part of their Department of Veterans Affairs healthcare. I believe I'm not very an expert on this specific veterans, but I believe that you have to have some proof that you were in the service in order to get the services from the VA. And there are several services that they offer. One of them is the VA's blind rehab service, and they pay for devices for individuals or veterans who are blind or low vision. And then there's the VA's vocational rehab and employment service, which may provide employment-related AT as part of its independent living program. Again, I think you have to have a proof of some kind of a documentation that you were part of the service. And then at the very bottom, there is a link to the U.S. Department of VA, and that is more about the assistive technology. And this is also on the RTF document. Okay. As I talked about oops, sorry, I must have accidentally clicked on something. Hold on for a second. Okay. As I described the various agencies that you can go through, and it's important for your role during the process that you want to make sure that your consumer client understands the process, going through these multiple steps when you're securing AT. It's a long process. It requires patience and, of course, ongoing communication, which is very important. You want to work with, the individual wants to work with their contact person to identify the steps you need to take and what will happen at each step in the process. Basically, what that is each step will be it's clarified in a way to make that individual understand of how that process takes and what will happen in the next step. You want to be clear as possible about what help or tools you think you need to reach your goals. So it's very important that you want to specify the assistive technology. If it's one tool or if it's multiple tools, you want to specify those multiple tools, and then what your goal is. In order to achieve those goals, you want to make sure you have those tools written in your process plan. And it's very important that you participate actively. Ask questions. If you do not understand the process or a question, you want to ask. And last but not least, you want to make sure that all the required documentations are submitted in a timely manner. It would be helpful to probably have like a checklist of documents, like a documentation with a checklist of what the required documents are, and that way it'll help you to, or the consumer to be more organized in that they've submitted the documents in a timely manner. Okay, I will go ahead and turn it over to Rachel Anderson, who will be talking about the other sources that you can go to. That's the crowdsourced fundraising sites.
Okay, so what happens when you've tried to fund a device, some AT, and you just can't get it funded by your insurance or by any other means? Another option that is available to everyone is crowdsourced fundraising. Now, crowdsourcing is a term, it's relatively new now because it's used usually in regards to the internet and particularly social media sites as a way to get causes and things out there quickly. Hopefully most of you are familiar with social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. And myself joining one of those sites, it's amazing how quickly you can all of a sudden have a lot of contacts that are, may or may not be your actual friends, but people that are in your social circles. So it's a really great way to spread the word about a cause or about something. So crowdsourced fundraising then is the collective effort of individuals to network and pool their money towards a particular goal. And so I listed here several different, there are quite a few. As I mentioned, it's very popular right now. Maybe some of you have been getting asks from friends or contacts of yours for different causes and things. So there are many new sites, I would say coming up monthly, different sites, but I did research several different ones, and I'm just going to list them for you. youcaring.com, GoFundMe.com, FundsForYourLife.com, MicroGiving.com, Fundraiser.com, GiveForward.com, HumanTribeProject.com, and ModestNeeds.org. So these are just several different sites. They're all different. Some sites have parameters of being just for medical equipment. Other ones, have specific areas that they're looking for. So obviously, when you're researching, if this is an option for you, to really make sure that it's the right place for you. You want to find the right site. That's what you're looking for. So I'm going to give you an example of some that I found. Now on the screen I have 3 real pictures from some crowdsourced fundraising sites. There's a woman in a hospital bed with her dog. There's a little boy looking at the camera, and it says, "Help Orest overcome his traumatic brain injury." And then on the bottom, there's a picture of another little boy surrounded by his brothers and sisters and his mother. And his name is Ty. And this example I'm going to read to you was from microgiving.com site. They were looking for, well, I'll just read to you first what I have and then explain what happened. It was called, the title of it was Little Ty's Rehab Bike. Earlier this year, Ty was diagnosed with a rare virus called NMO, neuromyelitis optica. Within a week, Ty was paralyzed from the neck down. His family started to prepare for Ty's homecoming next month by either moving or modifying their current house. A key piece of Ty's rehab is a special electric arm and leg bike. As of now, insurance is not paying for this. The cost for the bike is $22,000. Now this is something that is familiar to many of us, that's specialized equipment can be expensive and it's not always easily covered, and especially with rehab, time is of the essence to purchase items like these. So Ty's family started a micro-giving site for Ty to raise the $22,000 and sent it out to their contacts and had their contacts sent it to their contacts. And what happened is they actually exceeded their goal. They raised over $32,000. And just some statistics for you. There were 23 emails sent over. It's really neat. Most of these sites show you how many people have shared this with either via Facebook, via Twitter, or sent it as a link with an email. So just for Little Ty's rehab bike and raising $32,000, which is quite a bit of money for them, and they had 20 tweets, 882 Facebook shares, and 23 emails. So it's pretty impressive. I would encourage you guys to look at some of these sites. The other little boy, the picture I had, Help Orest overcome his TBI, they raised $91,000. Now, there are some sites that have fees that they charge. Every donation they take a percentage. Some of them, if you reach a certain goal, then you won't have to pay those fees. So just a reminder to really research before you start start with the process of using crowdsourced fundraising. Moving on to some more tips for you. As I mentioned, research each site completely before planning your strategy. Look at those successful fundraisers. Look at the ones that aren't successful, and you will probably notice right away that some of the people either they didn't figure out how to upload an image, or but you'll notice the ones that are not successful and why they're not successful. So really kind of take some time to study that. Develop a clear, oh, I'm sorry, one other thing. I actually started a microgiving site this year for a friend of mine that was fighting cancer. She lived in Nicaragua, and I started a microgiving site here for her because her medical care was more than her family could do. And one thing that I didn't really research, and I would encourage you to do so, is to look at the tax information because this is income and you have to claim it on your taxes. So make sure that you know, that wouldn't be something that could hold you back. So research the tax info, look at other people's reviews, be sure to calculate that percentage so you get a realistic idea of how much money the company might take versus how much money you'll actually be able to use towards your device. Develop a very clear, concise, and brief statement. Now, the Little Ties rehab bike that I just read, I took most of the words verbatim, but I shortened it a bit. But you definitely want to think long and hard about what exactly you're going to ask for. I wouldn't ask for something general like help someone overcome TBI. The more specific of the ask, the easier it is to get funds raised for that. So the fact that they were looking specifically for this bike, they had links to the bike with pictures of it, the price of it, so that it was very clear this is the bike that that we need. Be very clear about what it is that you're looking for, and I think it's very helpful to provide that sort of proof to the donors, the people that you're trying to make the ask for, to show the proof of this is really what I need and this is what I'm using it for. Make sure as well that you use high quality pictures and develop a daily or weekly social media plan. So don't just put it on your Facebook and say, hey everybody, please give what you can for this. Make sure that you follow up. You don't want to bother people by every hour sending them an email, but you do need to be persistent with your asks. Some more tips, as I mentioned, be very specific in the details, show exactly what you are looking for to purchase, be patient and persistent. It's okay to ask your contacts to share with their contacts, and that's how you get that 882 Facebook shares for Ty's rehab bike. Be sure to follow up as well. One thing I did with our micro-giving site was weekly updates with how the cancer treatment was going, how my friend's spirits were raised. Be sure to follow up with updates. People are going to give you money and they are happy to be involved, so please give them the respect of acknowledging your thanks and gratitude, as well as following up with updates. So let's see. Another thing, apart from the crowdsourced fundraising sites, you can also develop a funding strategy in order to, just another option if you aren't able to find funding for different AT, would be to go to local community clubs. This can be Rotary Club, Kiwanis, Lions Club, different churches. A lot of times, these resources in your own community, they like to fund people that are in their community as well, in their county. So on our how-to section at atnet.org, we have some steps of developing that funding strategy, as well as a sample funding request template, so that much like the online, you want to really think out clearly your ask before you go to Rotary or Kiwanis or a group that does do local community service projects and fundraising that way. So that's another option for you. And I think that is all. Do we have any questions? It's question time.
Rachel, this is Kim. Before you take the first question, I wanted to bring your attention to Bruce's comment. It's up Bruce from San Diego. If you can just read that for the folks.
Okay, Bruce of San Diego said, be careful. Crowdfunding is full of scammers as well as legit people trying to find help. Ty's disease in this case is not a virus. It's an autoimmune disorder. Maybe the author of the page was just misinformed. Thanks, Bruce. Yes, definitely you want to be careful. As I mentioned, I use this site as well. So, I'm not sure in this case in particular, but thanks, Bruce, for that comment.
So Karen's question was, what about Title VII Homemaker? Would like one of the presenters answer that, please?
Karen, this is Kim. I'm assuming you're talking about Department of Rehabilitation. Is that correct? Just you can go ahead and text yes or no in the chat box. Okay. Well, I don't see that Karen's typing. So there is a homemaker provision within Department of Rehabilitation. I don't know much about it. It's received decreased funding over the years, and that's something we can look into. I know that Karen has used it to fund assistive technology devices for people who need AT to live independently in their homes and cannot get the funding from other sources. So I believe that's what she's talking about, and I think she just wanted us to mention it.
If you guys have any further questions, you can always contact Rachel, Kim, and Rosemarie. Their email addresses on the slides right now. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to today's webinar. Have a good day. Bye.